Hi, it's Jason here. I'm just going to run through my new dive computer, Ratio iColor Deep. And the reason I'm doing this is there's not very many videos out there that really review the dive computer or look at it in much detail. And I just sort of wanted to add a little bit to that knowledge base and help people make the decision as to whether this is for them or not. I have been diving since 2005. I haven't done all that many dives. I'm not a hugely experienced diver. I've been doing a lot more dives lately and really gotten back into my scuba in this last, over 2022 really. The dive computers that I historically used and that I now use as spares are Uatech Galileo Pros, and they're perfectly fine. I've got two of them. I've got a rig here in Queensland and I've also got a rig back in Perth where I live. And yeah, they work fine. The data that they give is pretty similar to the Ratio. I guess one of the big differences really is the descent rate and the configurability, because Uatech's really you get what you're given. So the reason that I wanted to get a new dive computer was I'm doing a lot of night diving, and the Uatechs don't have a backlight, which is a bit of a problem. You can shine your torch on it, but it kind of blinds you. So I wanted something a little bit more, that would work better for me for night dives. Also, the Galileos that I have don't do nitrox, and that was something that I was looking at getting into. So getting a new dive computer just seemed to make sense. The computers that I was looking at, I really wanted a watch style dive computer, and the Ratio wasn't really I wasn't really looking at it at all initially. I was looking at the Shearwaters, and the Garmin Mark II I was the other one that I was looking at. And one of the reasons I was looking at the Garmin, I'll probably still get one eventually anyway, but one of the reasons I was looking at that was to replace my current Samsung watch that I use for hiking and activities, and having something that also did do my dives for me. I was having a look around and I came across the Ratio website, and they have some specials on at the moment which frankly are pretty darn good. I ended up getting a Ratio iColor Deep plus a transmitter, screen protector that this has got on it, and a spare strap for less than 1,000 Aussie, shipped to Australia, and it's pretty hard to beat really. It was going to cost me 3 times that amount to get the equivalent with the Garmin, so that was going to be up around the $3,000 mark with the Garmin Mark II I and a transmitter. So I've done a little bit of diving with this now, not a heap. I'll probably come back and do another segment later on how I'm finding things. But I just sort of want to run through some of the features that I found, and how I find the watch really. Now, I paid for this out of my own pocket. There's no sponsorship or anything like this here. I'm really just providing this as information because there's not much out there, particularly in English. So what I've found with a Ratio, I guess, is the first thing is the screen, the brightness of it. Underwater, it's really quite easy to see. I wear a prescription mask, but I don't have any real problem reading it. I wanted a wristwatch, which is why I went this way, so that you can do this, the Garmin or the Shearwater. I found that in the sunlight it can be a little bit difficult to read on the surface, but if I just put my hand over it and shaded it, it was okay. The only reason I needed that in full sunlight was when I was adjusting the blend. So it's fairly easy to operate And I was surprised, like looking through the manual, I thought that this would be a little bit trickier to operate, but really it's fairly basic. There's two setting screens. So the first one you get to when you're in the watch mode, and you press the bottom left button, and that takes you through your display, just some general settings, and you use these buttons on the right, go up and down, and they just go around to different things, you know, your different bits and pieces. And then when you want to change something, you just select it. Now, I'm not going to go through the display. It's basically just setting the colors for what you want. General units, whether you're in with the rest of the world and doing your metric, or if you're stuck in the US and stuck on the imperial, then you can change your settings there, just to see reference pressure, and you can just reset them, and you can turn the watch off here in the general settings. The PC mode, so when you want to download your dives, you do this in the PC mode, and essentially when you go in there, it just turns it on for you, and exit when you're ready to go. Oops, that's into the dive mode. We'll just go back to the watch mode for now. We'll get into the dive mode in a second. I'll just quickly run through these. Transmitters, this is where you set up the transmitter. So I've got the deep, which allows me to have 3 different transmitters. I haven't got a transmitter connected. Well, transmitter's in the house, but it's not connected at the moment. So yeah, basically you set it up, and you can set your this is where you select your mix that it's on as well. So and your mixes you set elsewhere, but essentially what you do, again, just press the select button, you go through, this is the channel that it's on, whether or not this transmitter's on, because yeah, there's 3, you can have 3 transmitters, 10 if you go to the next model up, which you can just upgrade these watches to with a software update. And this is where you pick your mix. So I've got 3 mixes programmed in here, I think. And where you set your reserve, which is a bit low. I don't know why that's set on 30 at the moment, but let's change that, because I want my reserve to be 50 bar. Right, and that's where you basically set them for the transmitters there. Once you've done with it, you can just get back out, and that gets you back into the menu. Compass. The compass looks a bit different than it does in the manual, and I've set the declination up for where I'm located. You can calibrate it within there as well. Info is just serial number, and you know what model you are, things like that. Firmware version, and the battery at the moment. So fairly easy to navigate around. Alarm clock, it's nothing real fancy there, it beeps at you. Date time is where you set your date time. One of the cool things about this, so once you connect it up to your computer, you can automatically sync it to your computer, which is what I do. And when you do that, the time comes up in a blue color. Otherwise it's white if you haven't synced it, but if it's synced, it's a blue color. It's great for me when I'm changing time zones, because the computer changes time zones. I do a sync and it just sets it up for me. Everything's basically ready to go. So the next, before we get into dive mode, we'll go into so this is the compass. There's a couple of things. So you press the bottom button to set a heading, and then if you press the top button, it changes between whether you have a degree, and as we turn it around, you just sort of see it turns pretty quickly. It's not instant, but it's fairly good. So I've used this to navigate underwater pretty easily, and it works pretty good. You see these, I tend to see these white bits on the side. Underwater, they're really easy to see, and that sort of tells you whether you're going the right direction or not. So yeah, for navigation, it's really easy. You can get to this directly from your from the dive mode as well, which is really cool. Okay, so we'll go into the dive modes now. So when you press your button, this is into the deep dive mode, or the scuba mode. There's no different scuba nitrox mode, it's all the same thing. You just put your gas blend in and away you go. You compress it again, it changes some of your details down here. Because I've got a transmitter attached, it goes into some transmitter screens. The next one's gauge mode, which I haven't used, and thirdly you've got free diving mode, which I've tested it in the pool, but I haven't dived on it. It seems to work alright. But I mainly got this for the scuba side. So if we go back to the scuba mode, there's another set of menus under this. So if you press the bottom left button, you get into a menu. So you've got first of all, you've got your logbook. Now this shows your last dive. And I wish you could scroll back through them, but it's really only your last dive that's there. The others get recorded and you can download them, but I haven't worked. There might be a way to do it. I haven't worked out yet how to go through your last dive. But it's got all your details here. So if you need to, like the dive boats that I've been on, they want your details of your dive, so your bottom time, your remaining pressure, maximum depth, and all that. So you can find that really easily on here. So this is the last dive that I did. Got a nice little graph there, and you can, when this button here, when the eye is yellow, you can press that to get a little bit more information about the mode I was in, which algorithm I'm on, and the conservatism factor. So yeah, that's fairly handy. This is your mixers table. So this is where you put in your nitrox mixers. So again, I've got the deep, so it supports 3 different gases. The easy, I think, supports 1 or 2, and the Tech Plus supports up to 10. But it's really easy. When you analyse your gas, you just go in, change your O2 percentage, just press that if we want to go back to 32 or whatever. So say we're driving on 32 nitrox. It's there. It also supports helium, so this one supports trimix, the easy doesn't, and that's your PPO2 that you want to use for your mod calculations, and finally whether it's enabled or disabled. Now one of my little bugbears is, even though it's got this this option on mix 1, you can't disable mix 1. So mix 1 is always, I think it's always starting gas, but you can't disable it, which would have been cool because then I could have 1 on air, 1 on nitrox 32, 1 on nitrox 36, and just turn whichever one on and off if I want to. But you just have to go in and just change your gas percentage oxygen manually for mix 1. Mix 2 and 3, however, you can disable them or enable them. So if you're using a stage bottle or using deco gases or whatever, you can have up to 3 different gases there. But I'm not at that part of my journey yet, so I'm not going to, not at that level in my scuba yet, so I'm not going to review that. I'll leave that to others, or if I come back in a few years and I'm doing tech dives, and I'll come back and tell you what I think about this on this computer. So going back out again, the next one you've got is, this is your dive setup. So this is where you set the water type that you're in. Dive mode. So the dive mode is what it defaults to when you jump into the water. So I tend to set, if I'm going on scuba trips, I'll set this to scuba. If I'm doing some snorkeling, I'll just set this to free dive mode, and that basically says this is what it defaults to when you jump into the water. There is a little error in the manual because it says you can't do free dive unless it's been within 12 hours or something of the last scuba. I think it's meant to say if it's only 12 hours since your previous scuba, you can't set it to free dive mode. It will set it to scuba, so it continues to track all your nitrogen levels and things like that. I think that's how it works, but I haven't had a problem just starting this in free dive mode. You can select your algorithm, so you've got your Borman, or you can also select the bubble model if that's how you prefer. I'm diving on Borman. The research seems to indicate that it's a better selection, and I have set the my conservatism level at 2, which is 80/80. On the deep, you've got preset levels. On the Tech Plus, you can set these to whatever you want. Yeah, the research, probably a matter for another one, but the research that I've looked at seems to indicate that you're better off, you get better degassing by having higher stops. But I'm not doing deco diving anyway at this stage, so it's really just, this is really just in case something happens and I end up going to deco and need to come up, which I hope I don't. Yeah, you can set your deco control, your safety stop time, so that's customizable. I have a minimum 3 minute stop at 5 meters. One of the good things about this is that the safety stop and the deep stop are not compulsory on this, so it's not going to lock you out. Whereas the deco control, this basically means if you miss your deco stop, you're not going to, it won't let you dive again. It'll lock you out for 24 hours, I think, or maybe it's 48. I don't know. I try not to go there. Deep stop, I'm not using that, and this is just where you set your last stop at. So you can set your settings there. So again, this is all in the dive menu. This is your alarms. Now, one of the things I've noticed, I've got the buzzer on. It's not very loud. I would really like to have seen in this a vibration mode. It doesn't support that, so if that's something that you want, there's probably some other dive computers that might suit you better. But having said that, I've only done a few dives and I probably haven't. I'm pretty careful about the rate I come up at, so I may not have had a buzzer yet. But yeah, ascent speed. So that's, I've just got, if I come up too quickly, I want it to beep at me. If I hit my mod, I want it to beep at me. So both means that it flashes and there's also a beeping alarm. So that's if you hit your deco ceilings. Dive time, I haven't set that at the moment. I'm only doing non-decompression limits at the moment, and my sac rate is not so great that I'm have a huge amount of air left at the end of the, after about 50 minutes to an hour. So that's generally what our dives are rated at. I'm just manually keeping track of that, but it might be an idea to use this in the future to beep at me if I'm getting, close to the 50 minutes or hour or whatever whatever we've been directed to by our dive guides. Dive depth, so I've set this to 30 meters. I'm advanced open water, and if I'm hitting 30 meters, I'd like to know about it. And finally, gas reserve. So if I hit that reserve bar, again, beep at me, tell me I'm getting low on air, need to come up. So yeah, all useful things, and there's a dive planner on there. It takes it from where you currently are, and you can work out what your next stops are. It's quite a simple dive planner, but it seems to work quite well. All right, so that's pretty much it from that side of it. I'll just take you through the screen a little bit. So you've got up the top, you've got your dive time. This is your current depth, and this is your max depth. Now this changes, your max depth changes when you come up to your safety stop. This changes to your time remaining on your safety stop, or it also, if you go into decompression, this will change to your remaining, basically your remaining dive time based on your remaining bottom time based on your air consumption. Down the bottom, you've got your nitrox mix down the bottom, and that's your PPO2 at the depth that you're at. And this one here is when you press this once, you get these are the pressures of your transmitters. I tend to keep it on this page here. It just always shows me what my pressure is. It doesn't change this page automatically, so whatever you set this on is where it will stay while you're diving. I find that this is, really quite simple for me. Also, when you press it again, when you're underwater, you get a little bit of other information. I think you get your, it might be your N2 partial pressure, but there's some extra data at the bottom that you get. Also, while you're in your dive mode, you press your top button, and that brings you into your compass. So you can use that there, and you just press back to get you back. This will take, when you're diving, it'll take you back to your dive mode page. So yeah, look, I'm finding this, it's really easy to read underwater. I use a prescription mask. I don't find it too difficult to see. The protector that I've got on here, I think magnifies it a little bit, so that helps. But the screen protector probably makes it a little bit more difficult to read on the surface in full sunlight. So yeah, it's like, it does all the stuff I need it to. The pricing that Ratio got on at the moment is pretty unbeatable in my, it's my gut feeling. This is pretty unbeatable. I couldn't find a cheaper coloured dive computer that's got the that hasn't got your segment display on it. There's nothing out there at the moment that's cheaper than these. And look, I've dived it a few times, and it performs well. It's easy to read, really easy to use underwater. So I'll take across to the import. So it directly supports the subsurface. So it comes into subsurface here. So this is one of the dives that I did recently. This is a dive that was actually up on the computer, and you can see here, this is a Ratio iDive Color Deep, and if I go across, this is the Eurotech Memo Mouse. So this is my Galileo Pro. It's got the second tank up here because the Galileo's had I think it had a Eurotech transmitter on it, some stage, which I don't use, but it always, subsurface always defaults to having a tank up there, so I get it to use one bar out of that tank. But this, you can see this is the Galileo, so certainly the sampling interval is not the same, but in terms of the overall depths, they're pretty similar. There's not that much difference. I think this 11.9 compared to 10.8 may have something to do with the sampling frequency, but look, there's really not that much in it. It's really easy to import. You basically just put it into transmitter, connect it up to your computer, and then we just go up to import, and oops, wrong one. Log, and you just import from your dive computer, and I've just got the Ratio set up there. So when I select that one, it just selects it, and you can, all this stuff, if you're aware of subsurface and nothing similar, but it's, it's supported straight out of the box, so it's really easy to get data in here. And also the Ratio toolbox allows you to sync, and you can just download the dives directly. I think they come out as XML files, so you can just download the dives directly out of the Ratio using the toolbox without using subsurface, and you can import it into whatever program you want to use. So yeah, this is, look, it's been, I've used this for 3 dives so far. So this one here was a shore dive that I used it on, and then did 2 dives on the Sunshine Coast at the caves, and so they're the 2 dives, and look, it's ticking all the boxes for me. So look, that's just a little bit of an overview of the Ratio. So far I've been really happy with it. The transmitter works really well. It does take a little while when you connect it up for the dive computer to recognise it, so give it a few minutes. sorry about that, it's just my phone. I will finish this off and call back. So yeah, look, it worked really well. Does everything that expected to, and yeah, so far I've been pretty happy with it. I will do a follow-up, some more thoughts on this as I dive with it a bit more, and yeah, it's all good. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Hope this gives you a little bit more information. As I said, at the moment, we're in April 2022. The the specials are still on at the Ratio website, so just visit, I think it's ratio.com or ratio-computers.com. Go in there and look, the specials at the moment are incredible. Customer service from those guys have been really good. They got it out to me pretty quickly. So, yep. Maybe throw it in your, if you're considering a new dive computer, maybe I would put it on my list of options to look at. May not be everything suited for you, but certainly works for me, and the price point's right. All right, I'm going to sign out here. Thanks for tuning in.